I'm Billy S, and a few years ago we ranked every final boss in Soulsborne up to that point, but my comments were adamant that I should have included DLC final bosses in that ranking, and while I would like to do that ranking of both final bosses and DLC final bosses together one day, I first want to give those final DLC bosses their own ranking to shine in. So be sure to parry that subscribe button as we're trying to reach 40,000 subscribers, and we're so close, oh my god, we're so close! And let's begin this list with... At number 9, we have Sinh, the Slumbering Dragon, the final boss of the Crown of the Sunken King. By this placement, I need to stress that all 9 fights in today's video are of an extremely high quality. Sinh is one of my 5 favourite fights in Dark Souls 2, that tells you how tight this race truly is. Sinh is a dragon coated in a deadly poison that leaks into the fight as you play. You'll be dodging fireballs, only to find the area struck coated in a thick noxious cloud you have to avoid. Sin's melee combos can be deceptively tricky to dodge with the right timing, but he often gives you a lot of openings if you look for them. I faced this boss and no-hit him on Soul Level 1, and once you analyze the moveset, you'll see all those openings laid out before you. Does he swoop at you, or drop to the ground after flying into the sky? Can you react in time to his charge attack that will take you out if you get hit? Are you aiming for his head to get the most damage you can, or are you trying to attack his body instead? Because of Sin's corrosive skin, the head is the only safe spot to attack that doesn't come at the cost of your weapon durability. Otherwise, you'll either need a backup weapon or a cache of repair powder to keep yourself topped up. There's nothing worse than panic menuing because you forgot that he could break your equipment, which can be really annoying, especially in Dark Souls 2, where weapons are about as durable as those you get in modern Zelda games, and it takes me out of the fight a little bit. Not to mention, we've had so many stronger dragon fights throughout the series that feel more elevated than what Sinh can currently offer. He's a great fight, but I don't think many will argue that he's near the bottom of this list for a reason. At number 8, we have the Burnt Ivory King, final boss of the Crown of the Ivory King DLC. Fought beneath Elium Lois in the old Chaos Arena, you first have to dispatch his minions who spawn in via the fiery portals throughout the arena. If you choose to save the Lois Knights in the kingdom above, they will come to your aid when facing this boss fight, sacrificing their lives to seal those portals and give you the opportunity to face the Burnt Ivory King without being swarmed. You choose your difficulty for this battle. I really like that mechanic, though dying can be a bit tedious as you have to face the minions every single time. I've yet to attempt this fight at Soul Level 1, and it's partly why that series hasn't continued on my channel yet. I'm kinda scared to handle this portion. The Burnt Ivory King himself, though, isn't a terribly difficult fight. He starts out as a regular knight with a few extra combos, only becoming deadly when he buffs his sword midway and turns it into a giant lightsaber. Here, his range is increased, and he deals a lot more damage, but I found that sticking close to the boss allows you to dodge some of his tougher swings, and the combo game here remains mostly the same. You might even have one of the knights still alive to help you against the Burnt Ivory King from the start, which neuters the difficulty of the encounter somewhat. He's incredibly manageable as a battle, more known for his memorability and his lore, which is both tragic and iconic. I will never not sing his praises for his boss entrance. WWE could never, but he can't hold a candle to the fights higher on this list. At number 7, this is my big controversial take. We have Promised Consort Radahn, the final boss of Shadow of the Erdtree. Everyone and their mother has talked about this fight to death since the DLC launched a few years ago. We all have our own opinions. Some will defend this battle to the death, believing it to be the perfect capstone for an amazing DLC. Others will call it trash, citing that reusing Radahn felt like a cop-out and wasn't what they were expecting. I fall somewhere in the normal middle of the camp. I find the Promised Consort to be a fun fight, and the time I spent learning his battle made me a much stronger Elden Ring player. His combos have been nerfed since launch to be a lot more manageable, and many of my initial complaints have been addressed. Phase 2, they even reduced the light show that tries to blind you after every attack, while making some of the more visually striking moments, such as his various clone moves, look more readable for the player. However, I just don't find this fight to be terribly replayable. The level in skill between myself and the Promised Consort is a gulf, and as a player, I've always responded best to boss fights where my own skills are close to those of the boss I'm fighting. Impossible challenges such as Promised Consort or Melania are fun, I do enjoy them, but they're like a rare wine I sample once a year. They're not fights I can simply jump into and play well. They require so much focus and thought that I end up burning myself out, which is enough to knock this boss down my personal rankings. After all, this is all based on my personal preference. Which of these fights would I, if you asked me, pick up a controller and go after immediately? I think the moveset is fantastic, Phase 1 is extremely fun, and I love learning it. Phase 2 builds on Phase 1's foundation and has some fantastic moments built in, like the return of Radahn's Meteor, but I genuinely would rather fight the rest of the bosses on this list before stepping toe-to-toe with Promised Consort. If only it were Messmer, Midra, or Gael as the final boss of the DLC instead. Shadow of the Erdtree would place way higher here as a result. At number 6, we have Sir Alonne, the final boss of the Crown of the Iron King. Yes, you heard me right, you'd think it would be the Fume Knight here, but no. Beating him is actually a requirement for unlocking Sir Alonne's battle. No other DLCs in the series do it this way, but even then, the position on this video would remain the same. Sir Alonne is a fantastic fight that sees you taking on a samurai-like knight in a duel to the death within his memories. The gag that you, the bearer of the curse, are the reason why Sir Alonne vanished, sending the Iron King into a full-on spiral, is some roundabout storytelling, but it makes a ton of sense. The fight itself sees Alonne wasting no time. He has fast strikes and slashes that are designed to be tough to dodge. His grab acts as a temporary buff to his sword, where if he spears you, he'll be able to unleash stronger attacks. And like every cool swordsman, he can shoot energy beams from his blade to attack the player. Though I found this attack not as prevalent with my playstyle, I tend to stick close to Alonne, forcing more of his melee combos. As it turns out, Alonne is very weak to an inwards right side dodge. You can avoid every one of his attacks with that right directional dodge, which definitely makes the fight a little easier than first thought. As long as you have a weapon that can capitalize on that dodge pattern to deal damage each time, you will come out on top. And if you win without taking damage, you'll even see Sir Alonne commit seppuku as penance. I have yet to see this in-game myself, but it's a cool thought to aspire to. If only his runback wasn't one of the worst in the franchise, designed in a lab in the depths of hell itself, he might have actually passed our next entry. At number 5, we have Manus, Father of the Abyss, the final boss of the Artorias of the Abyss DLC. Manus predates everyone else on this list by a wide margin, coming from the very first DLC FromSoft put out, and he has aged like a nice Pinot Grigio. A boss fight that is still intimidating to this day, but who only works so well because of Dark Souls' rigid controls. 4-directional dodges are something I always struggle with when returning to this original game, as well as the fact that dodging into enemy attacks just doesn't work in Dark Souls. The lessons that future games in the series teach you are unmade here, and instead you have to play a more careful, cautious game, especially with Manus. If he catches you in his wombo combo, you are done. You're taking it whether you want to or not. His giant hand attacks are very entertaining, and you can see the inspiration for enemies like Bloodborne's Cleric Beast clear as day. What really elevates Manus for me though, aside from the gorgeous presentation, are his dark spells. Manus has 3 different abilities he can break out: a shotgun blast, an enclosing dark ring, and a shadowy rain. You can avoid all these attacks with your regular kit as long as you see them coming, or you can use the silver pendant found earlier in the DLC to protect you from projectiles. I love fights that give you extra ways to tackle them, especially when hot swapping to other items. Gascoigne's music box in Bloodborne, the shackles for Morgott and Moog, the blasphemous claw for Malekith in Elden Ring. More of this, please. Manus ups the pace of what a Dark Souls boss could be, and it makes for an endlessly entertaining fight that I loved getting better at back in the day. I'm always down to jump in the ring with him, whatever the weather. At number 4, we have Sister Friede, the final boss of Ashes of Ariandel, the first 3-phase boss fight in the franchise. I definitely have a soft spot for Friede. She's one of the few scythe wielders in the series, and she battles with flawless precision. Her first phase, having a handful of melee combos while introducing you to her invisibility gimmick, is a nice touch. I like how you can see the direction she leaps in based on the way the particles move from her jump spot, and if you have headphones, you can use directional audio to home in on her location. Her damage is threatening though, which forces you to avoid taking hits in phase 1, which works out really well given the 2 phases ahead. I think her team up with Father Ariandel is the weakest part of the fight, and definitely why she misses out on the top 3 here, but by no means is it bad. I just think the big man with his giant soup bowl is a bit uninteresting to fight, with his main gimmicks being slams or the occasional fire across the floor you have to dodge. Meanwhile, Friede is playing passive, sending ice trails and healing the pair of them when she can. But because their health bars are tied together, you can just wail on the father for quick damage and end the fight quickly. Black Flame Friede is the true challenge. Many of her attacks have extra flame trails that do more damage, she can pull you in close with grabs, her invisibility combos are far more dangerous with her jumping around multiple times before going in for the kill, but I love that her biggest attack, the one where she leaps into the air and slams down, is surprisingly easy to avoid. Just step forwards a little bit, turn around, and you can backstab her when she lands. I learned that in my Soul Level 1 run. Black Flame Friede always gives me a scare while fighting her, often getting me low on health a few times because I tend to be a player who trades damage when I go for the win, but that just makes those battles with her more memorable as I can afford to do that. If only Father Ariandel didn't exist, she'd be top 3 then for sure. At number 3, we have Traitorous Stragus from the Forsaken Hollows Night Rain DLC. Now, I'll freely admit that the Dreglord is the fight I understand the least on this entire list. I've fought him a few times, but I won't sit around and pretend that I understand all his mechanics on an intimate level. I still have no idea how most of his phase 1 works with the minions, just that he can power up the zombies until they turn into terrifying worm faces if we're not careful. But the stuff I do get, I really enjoy. Him creating orbs and mounds of rot that explode and coat the arena perfectly timed to the music is the stuff I live for. His weapon is one of the coolest in the series, another scythe wielder which I adore, and his combos are tough but fair to manage. He truly doesn't come into his own though until the second phase, where the minions are wiped out and Stragus goes feral. Whether it's his arena-wide nuke attack that requires precision to avoid, or the way he'll dash from pillar to pillar in an attempt to run you over, it just oozes spectacle. I love that in phase 2 as well, his combos become more predictable, but have more punishment for failing to manage them. You never want to be the person he's targeting, but it just means your teammates will have ample time to take pot shots in the meantime. And that half health moment with the 2 nukes timed perfectly to the beat of the music might just be one of my favorite moments in any Soulsborne game. I'm not even joking. Every phase, every push with the Dreglord makes you feel like you're overcoming a new hurdle and getting closer to that victory, down to the very end of the fight where he returns to his phase 1 moveset with the exploding rot balls and the attempt to scarlet rot the players with rain. The Dreglord has aura, the aura of a creature too angry to die until it's fulfilled its duty of fucking up the Night Lord and the destruction the rain has caused. He's solidified himself as a top-tier boss fight and is in contention for the best fight in Elden Ring Night Rain. At number 2, we have the Orphan of Kos from the Old Hunters DLC. The Orphan is one of those fights whose quality stands the test of time, even as these games get faster, tougher, and more brutal. His challenge level remains thanks to his hectic animations and the sheer ingenuity of his weapon, a stretchy placenta. When the Orphan of Kos first hit the scene, he was considered an insane difficulty spike compared to anything that came before him. The level of aggression was off the charts, befitting of a newborn baby. Normal babies will cry and cry, but when your baby is born with the power of a god, you can bet it's gonna be aggressive. The way his placenta stretches out and encircles him with many of his attacks is so entertaining to me. The way he bounds across the arena yelling the entire time keeps you on your toes, as it's so hard to predict what he'll do next. You have to get your hits in, use the rally system to regain lost health, and just try to survive the initial onslaught. When phase 2 hits, that gets amped up as he grows horrifying wings and begins to throw projectile attacks at you from above, while summoning the power of lightning to strike down the arena no matter where you are. And yet with games like Sekiro and Elden Ring under my belt, I actually find the Orphan to be slower paced than I remember. You imagine him as this vicious predator who is overpowered and ready to cause problems, but then you actually get to his fight and he's unironically one of the fairest fights in Bloodborne. You get ample openings to attack, his own combos are explosive yet readable, to the point where, I've told this story before, on my first playthrough I was able to beat Orphan of Kos on my very first attempt. It wasn't easy, but turns out he really didn't like the Kirkhammer that much. I also think he does something very important with his DLC. He doesn't try to fill the niches of Lady Maria or Ludwig, the other fights in the DLC that the fans love. He's very much his own unique encounter, being the only true humanoid battle against a Lovecraftian horror in Bloodborne. The Old Hunters DLC makes Bloodborne worth playing through, and the 1-2-3 punch of Ludwig, then Maria, and then Orphan is just the cherry on top when it comes to the required bosses. The living failures are there too, I guess. At number 1, we have Slave Knight Gael, the final boss of the Ringed City DLC, capping off the entire Dark Souls trilogy. For newer Soulsborne fans, you have to understand that when the Ringed City came out, we weren't sure if FromSoft were ever going to make another game in the Soulsborne franchise. Slave Knight Gael, for all intents and purposes, was the series' swan song, down to even giving us the Dark Soul as the victory item for the painter. And Gael milked all of that cinematic flair for what it was worth to create a fight that, had it truly been the end of FromSoft's gaming tenure, would have earned its flowers. It's the largest arena in the series, spanning a size that rivals the swamp of Farron Keep. Gael makes liberal use of the entire desert with his first phase, involving a series of feral combos that you have to dodge with care. You either end up waiting for his piercing grab, or his combo that ends in a jump slam to get the easiest punish windows to deal damage, which will eventually force him to phase 2. The Dark Soul churns within him, and that power has to get out somehow. His cape overflows with red flames, and he stands up straight, empowered to face us in one last duel. Whether he's attacking with his greatsword, swinging his cape, shooting discs of light, or peppering us with a crossbow, Gael does it flawlessly. And when you reach the last third of the health bar and skulls explode from his body, his cape flapping in the wind as he dashes and dives using combo after combo, it's one of the most exciting sequences in gaming. Lightning strikes the ground, forcing you to position yourself carefully, but when you eventually manage to overcome him, there's nothing quite like it. Some find Gael to be a bit overrated, and that's honestly fair, especially if you're coming from the high-octane fights from the games that followed, but as someone who lived through the release of Ringed City in the moment, Gael was special, and I still think he's one of the best balanced bosses in the entire series. Remember that I, as a player, respond best to bosses where my skill and their skill are of equal measure. Gael straddles this line perfectly and is my favourite DLC final boss. Though whether he's my favourite final boss full stop, maybe I'll do a follow-up video? Either way, let me know your personal ranking in the comments below, and be sure to parry that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all my future videos. I want to give a shout out to my YouTube channel members for supporting me for another month. It's $4.99, you get a shout in the description at the end of videos, you get access to my Dark Souls 3 and 2 Soul Level 1 runs, and it's just a nice way to keep this channel going. Thank you so much, guys. If you want to follow me, I have a Blue Sky, I have a Twitch, I stream most weeks here on YouTube. It's a great time to be a member of this channel. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Adios.